As always, today's video was sponsored by the Deck of Many in their Big Bad Booklet series. Before we begin, hello anime fans, you know exactly why you're here. But for everyone else who subscribed for my non-anime content, I'm gonna have to break some stuff down for you. Anime is Japanese style animation. It's characterized by stark, colorful graphics and vibrant characters and action-filled plots. Basically, take literally any American cartoon and, make it better. That's anime. So let's get to the meat and potatoes. How do you take all of this and mold it into D&D? Well, it's a little bit more nuanced than you think, so let's go over the obvious points first. Anime characters are colorful and unique, with lore and personalities that really make you want to learn more about them, see them struggle, and then overcome those obstacles. That's obviously true with any well-written character, so think about it like this. Would you want to buy merchandise and figurines of them? If not, then you're gonna need to spice up your OCs a bit more. Of course, this works fine and dandy for the players, as they'll almost always be the most expressive parts to any D&D campaign, but what's important is that the NPCs in your world also need to have these traits. Sometimes a random farmer is just a random farmer, but for any other character that's gonna take up more than 10 minutes of the campaign's time, it's a good idea to give them a few quirks that makes them stand out from the crowd, along with a flashy outfit and exaggerated personality. Trust me when I say the party's going to remember an NPC when they stick out like a sore thumb. Whoa, what's their deal? What's their name? Where do they come from? What do they want from us? If you're running an official module and you'd like to do some of this to your NPCs there, here's an even easier tip. Take whatever their original personality traits were and crank them up the crazy meter by a few notches. So someone who's normally hot-tempered would instead be a raging inferno, smashing through tables if they don't get their way, destroying things and threatening literally every creature under the sun that gets on their bad side. Anime characters are known for being memorable, and if you can leave your party with those crazy memories of the NPCs they've met, it'll be so much easier to engage them in the plot. Unless, you accidentally gain the mindset that your NPCs are somehow more important than your players. If there's ever a point in the game where an NPC has more detail put into them than a party member, then you know something's wrong. So what about the theme of the campaign? Well, just like in anime, your D&D game can also have a central theme. Romance, horror, thriller, action, comedy, whatever you'd like. A romance theme plays closely into the lives of the player characters, what they're looking for in a romantic partner, and the lengths they're willing to go to secure one. Antagonists of the party aren't always villains, and in the right situations could even be called friends. Or if you get really intimate, lovers. Building bonds with certain NPCs will get the players' favor with them, and if they ever need help themselves, the party can best be assured that someone will be there. For comedy games, taking things less seriously is always the best way to go. Even the Lord of Hell himself should be able to make people laugh occasionally. Breaking the fourth wall for the sake of a joke can be hilarious too, but don't go overboard or your players won't be able to tell reality from fiction anymore. Thriller games should have huge cliffhangers, betrayals, twists and turns that cause the players to yell out in excitement. Once again, anime does this thing called exaggeration, so if things are feeling bland, double or even triple the stakes on the next plot thread. And the last one I have the patience to talk about is horror. Horror games should be taken with precise care. I know a lot of people who are like, I'm not gonna let a bunch of young anime characters get themselves in horrific situations. And knowing the title of this video, almost every character in our game is gonna be a teenager, a young adult, or even a child. There's a certain mindset you're gonna need if you want to avoid traumatizing your party, and maybe I can finally convince people that anime totally has a place in dark horror campaigns. If a group of deadly bandits notice that the party has a young boy with them, what do you think they're gonna do? Murder him? Don't you think that people, even criminals, are capable of empathy, especially towards minors? That doesn't mean that ruthless killers don't exist though, and some creatures won't hesitate to go all out even on helpless people. There's an entire anime called Made in Abyss where two kids need to muster up the courage to scale down the deadliest cave known to mankind. It's terrifying, it's gruesome, and the show's made so much better because they're young. Reality is cruel sometimes, and if you're looking to host a horror game of anime-inspired D&D, make sure everyone at the table's fine with that. Aside from those points, I think everyone already knows how to add more horror to D&D games. Having a lot of hopelessness and suspense can be great, but make sure the party always knows that there's a way to move forward. A ton of other themes exist in storytelling, but you get the idea by now. On a new subject, every good anime RPG also has fight scenes, so let me break down the ins and outs of properly running combat for an anime-themed game. First off, do you want the players to survive and learn from their mistakes, like a cool plot armor covered anime protagonist? Well, set up some easier ways for them to resurrect even if they die, have enemies go for killing blows less often, and also encourage the party to back down and surrender if things aren't looking their way. Losing a combat should always be more emotional than physical anyway, so don't hinder players with permanent disabilities or the need to make a completely new character. How are you supposed to sell their anime merch if they permanently die? You gotta let them live long and prosper, but make sure that failure is still impactful even if it never means permanent death. If you want to be even more anime about things, remove everyone's HP and replace it with something like stamina. It works exactly like normal hit points, but instead of huge open wounds and blood splattering everywhere when creatures get hit, attacks from weapons and spells just ruin their clothing and leave minor cuts on their bodies. They'll faint when they reach 0 stamina, which basically means they're incredibly exhausted and lost the will to fight. Some creatures can still explode in blood and guts when they die, but for anyone with plot armor, they get to use the stamina system. If you're running a more realistic anime-themed campaign, using the normal HP system could be a good idea, but if you value your players' pretty faces, the stamina system can work way better. Hopefully that makes sense, so let's move on to the last big points you'll want to consider when building up your game. The common trope is that magic items are really expensive, rare, and hard to find. When someone does finally obtain one, it should become a staple piece of equipment for that character. Magical items are just as important as the NPCs we talked about earlier. Throw them around willy-nilly and nobody's gonna care. So give items a unique appearance and a magical power that meshes really well with the characters it was designed for. Give them a reason to care for, protect, and nurture the item. And if it's not viable anymore, then just give them a way to upgrade the thing. Letting players upgrade their old gear is a very nice way to keep things fresh, and the DMG probably has a few sections that could help you homebrew something for that. On another topic, here's another big trope for towns and cities. You gotta keep in mind that the guards are always gonna be completely useless at protecting literally anyone. Use the same group of soldier minis to show that every guard is the same useless person, and they're all expendable. If the party wants anything done right, they're gonna have to do it themselves. If you're not in a flashy, overcomplicated looking outfit, then you're not gonna be able to help anyone. I wasn't the one who made up this rule, that's just how anime works. Also, if you want to be either incredibly unoriginal or a master of parodies, the big bad evil guy for your campaign should be someone called the Demon King. He's an all-powerful being that sends his evil lackeys to do his bidding, because he's so cool and evil and mysterious. Ooh, I bet you're scared now. And just like in most anime, the show will abruptly end before we can even see the Demon King. Or in this case, your campaign will run out of fuel and your group will fall apart. Probably due to IRL stuff or whatever it is humans waste their time with, I don't know. Point is, the Demon King is there, and as he realizes just how dangerous the party is to his plans, he'll send out increasingly deadlier enemies their way, giving them an XP ladder of sorts to climb up until they're eventually strong enough to face the king. It's the most overplayed common trope when it comes to fantasy RPG anime, which is why it's perfect for your campaign. Moving on, for XP, you should use the typical XP system if you're looking to play D&D this way. Milestone XP systems are great, and generally preferred, but almost every fantasy RPG anime awards XP the normal way, which is point by point until a certain number is achieved, where a player would eventually level up. So if you're going with the realistic anime route, probably best to use that. Now, these are all just a bunch of funny tropes that pop up in anime a lot of the time, and if you ever wanted to spice up your games with stuff like this, go right on ahead. A ton of people who get into D&D are already used to the systems behind video games, and video games already do almost everything we've talked about up until now. So it shouldn't be too hard to get your friends on board with a D&D campaign, even if it does have an anime-themed style to it. Now this is the final anime lesson I have for you young ones. May your games be filled with tons of romanceable NPCs, children getting into trouble way over their heads, epic magical items, useless guards, demon kings, and a clunky XP system. Thanks for sticking around, and a reminder that this video was sponsored by the Deck of Many's Big Bad Booklet series. It's a giant Eldritch worm. It's cool. You can make it the final boss of your anime campaign. The Deck of Many releases epic stuff like this every month on their Patreon, and if you haven't subscribed already, I easily suggest you do. The ways their encounters are written are A+ in my opinion, and if you'd like to get the hang on how a great campaign can run, there's no other materials I'd recommend more. You can check out this boss and many more at bigbadbooklet.com. Link in the description.